Today, we're diving into the complexities of the South and slavery from 1787 to 1860. Let's look at the big ideas surrounding this period. First, it's important to note that the South remained distinct from the North, not just politically, but culturally and ideologically as well. This distinction was deeply rooted in the region's heavy reliance on agriculture, which was supported by the institution of slavery. As overcultivation depleted land in the southeast, many slaveholders moved their operations to the new southwest. This relocation wasn't just about finding fresh land, it intensified sectional tensions across the country, particularly over slavery. The foundation for defending slavery in the South centered around states' rights, nullification, and racist stereotypes. These ideas were used to justify slavery as a, quote, positive good in Southern society. However, resistance existed. African Americans found ways, both overt and covert, to resist the dehumanizing nature of slavery. Their resilience is a testament to the human spirit's desire for freedom and dignity. Let's look at the evolution of slavery in America. We start with Bacon's Rebellion in 1676. This event marked a pivotal shift from relying on indentured servants to embracing black slavery more extensively. It sets the stage for the systemic entrenchment of slavery in America. Moving forward to the 1780s, slavery became a hot topic at the Constitutional Convention. Here we see the infamous Three-Fifths Compromise emerge, a decision that would haunt American history by counting enslaved individuals as three-fifths of a person for representation and taxation purposes. By 1808, the transatlantic slave trade is officially banned. But the Fugitive Slave Act reinforces the harsh realities of slavery, requiring escaped slaves to be returned to their enslavers. In the next slides, we'll see how these early decisions set the groundwork for further tensions and compromises, like the Missouri Compromise, and how economic factors such as the rise of King Cotton further solidified slavery's role in the Southern economy. The historical context of slavery in the late 18th and 19th century. The Northwest Ordinance of 1787 was a significant piece of legislation, as it banned slavery in the Northwest Territories. This marked an early attempt to limit the spread of slavery in the new territories of the United States. Now, moving forward to the Missouri Compromise of 1820. It was a critical moment in American history. It allowed Missouri to enter the Union as a slave state and Maine as a free state, maintaining a balance between slave and free states. This compromise was crucial in postponing a major national crisis over the expansion of slavery. Both the Northwest Ordinance and the Missouri Compromise highlight the ongoing struggle to manage the contentious issue of slavery in America. These measures illustrate the complexities of balancing political interest and moral considerations during this period. It's important to note how Americans' views of slavery evolved over this time. When America founded its independence, it sought to rid itself of slavery in the future. They thought slavery would die out in the southern states and in the Northwest Ordinance in all the territories America owned at that time that it possessed, it outright banned slavery. So the founders sought to end slavery in the long term. Now, as the 1800s enter and as they move on, slavery starts to entrench and opinions start to change over whether or not to rid the nation of slavery. And there's a key economic component of this as well, which we'll explore. King Cotton. This is pivotal in the role of reshaping and expanding the Southern economy. The Southern economy was heavily reliant on cash crops like tobacco, rice, and especially cotton. The invention of Eli Whitney's cotton gin revolutionized this sector, making cotton a highly profitable cash crop. This technological breakthrough led to a surge in demand for land, which in turn escalated demand for slave labor. Interestingly, before this period, there was a belief that slavery might diminish for both moral and economic reasons. However, the profitability of cotton reversed this trend. So, if we're looking at a catalyst for what caused this change, look at the cotton gin, look at the economics. The market revolution further intertwined North and South, with northern industries depending on southern cotton for textiles. This economic interdependence meant that the prosperity of both regions was deeply tied to cotton production. As we move forward, we'll explore how the expansion of cotton production and slavery influenced regional tensions and led to major compromises in American history. Let's look at the expansion of cotton production and the impact of the expansion of slavery. The invention of the cotton gin revolutionized cotton as a cash crop, making it incredibly profitable. This profitability led to an increased demand for land, which in turn drove the expansion of cotton production across the South. The map on the left side looks at the expansion of cotton, and we can see where cotton was primarily centered. And we see a commonality here with the expansion of slavery. Look at where most of the slave population was in the South, and then look at where most of the cotton was. So these two were linked fundamentally into the nature of Southern society and where slaves were primarily located. Now we're going to explore how this expansion and reliance on slavery contributed to growing conflict within the United States. Western expansion. One of the key outcomes of Western expansion was the conflict over slavery. The Missouri Compromise in 1820 was one of the first major legislative attempts to maintain a balance between free and slave states. Next, the Compromise of 1850 sought to address the status of territories acquired during the Mexican American War, further fueling regional tensions. Finally, the Kansas Nebraska Act of 1854 introduced the concept of popular sovereignty, allowing territories to decide on the legality of slavery, which led to further unrest. These legislative measures were pivotal in deepening the divide between the North and the South, setting the stage for the intense sectional conflict that ultimately led to the Civil War. Let's take a look at the antebellum South. During this period, the South was predominantly agrarian, often referred to as King Cotton due to the booming cotton industry. This agricultural focus meant there was a lack of industrialization compared to the North. A significant portion of wealth was tied up in slave labor and the slave trade. Interestingly, while only 25% of white Southerners owned slaves, a staggering 75% did not. Yet many slave owning whites supported and defended slavery. Why? Because they saw it as a pathway to economic prosperity and a way to elevate their social standing. The wealthy elite, primarily plantation owners and slaveholders, dominated Southern politics, perpetuating the system. This societal structure stood in stark contrast to the North, where individual labor was valued, public schooling was more widespread, and there was a significant influx of immigrants. The mythologization of the antebellum South, such as the number one selling movie of all time, Gone with the Wind, played a role in shaping its identity and defense of slavery, despite the stark realities. Supporters of the South of the war sought to justify their actions or their ancestors' actions and rewrote or selectively viewed history. This is a time lapse of the growth and expansion of slavery from 1790 to 1860. Note how it dies out in the Northeast and is non existent in the Midwest, but thrives in portions of the South. The first states to secede are the southernmost ones. This is not mere correlation without causation. The more economically dependent the state was on slavery, the more prone they were to secede. In their justifications for secessions, each state wrote primarily about the institution of slavery being under threat. Let's look at the demographics and dynamics of African American communities in 1860s. In the North, the white population was about 22 million, while African Americans numbered around 227,000, living free but facing competition, particularly with Irish immigrants, for low skilled jobs. This competition often led to tensions as both groups sought economic stability. Moving to the South, the situation was starkly different. Out of a total population of 5.5 million whites, the African American community was substantial at approximately 4 million enslaved individuals, alongside about 250,000 who were free. Despite their freedom, these individuals faced severe restrictions, especially following Nat Turner's rebellion in 1831, a key event that tightened control over African American lives. As we consider these figures, we see a clear illustration of the contrasting experience of African Americans in different regions. It's essential to understand these social dynamics as we continue to explore the broader implications of slavery and freedom during this era. The harsh realities of chattel slavery. Slaves were treated as property without rights or freedoms. Imagine the impact of being viewed not as a person, but as an object owned by another. One powerful narrative that brought this issue to the forefront of the public was the novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, written by Harriet Beecher Stowe, an abolitionist in the North, highlighted the devastation of families being torn apart. The majority of enslaved individuals lived in the Deep South. They were stripped of any social, political, or civil rights. In fact, in some states, it was illegal to teach a slave to read or write, further embedding their oppression. The evolution of African American culture, where African and American influences beautifully intertwined. This cultural fusion is a testament to resilience and creativity. A turning point in this cultural emergence was the Second Great Awakening, which saw the rise of Black Christianity, particularly amongst Baptists and Methodists. This movement carried with it the African tradition of responsorial preaching, a call and response style that deeply engaged congregations. Music has always been a cornerstone of African American culture, especially spirituals. These songs, like Go Down Moses, were not just melodies, but powerful expressions of hope and a yearning for freedom. They told stories and inspired strength amidst adversity. As you read the words of Go Down Moses, consider how they reflect the struggles and the unbreakable spirits of those who sang them. This spiritual, like many others, is a poignant reminder of the journey from oppression to liberation. Resistance to slavery. There were many different ways that African Americans sought to resist the system that they were in, from work slowdowns, negligence, from running away with the Underground Railroad into the North and into Canada, and while they were not common, slave revolts. Some key slave revolts were Stono Rebellion in 1739, the Denmark Vesey, which was a massive revolt in South Carolina, and Nat Turner, which killed 60 people. Southerners reacted strongly to these revolts as they feared for their lives, and they passed harsher black codes. These codes were often based upon codes created in the Caribbean, and they also instituted slave patrols as well to capture runaways and bring them back to their owners. So, slaves did not acquiesce to the institution they were in. They sought, to the best of their ability, to resist in some measure and in some capacity. The abolitionist movement. The Quakers were pioneers in opposing slavery. Their early stance set the stage for a broader movement against this inhumane practice. The American Colonization Society, although controversial, aimed to transport freed slaves back to Africa, establishing Liberia. This was one of the complex solutions proposed during this era. David Walker, a key figure, penned Appeal to the Colored Citizens of the World in 1829, urging enslaved people to rise against their oppressors. His bold call for violent uprising shows the desperation and urgency felt by those fighting for freedom. William Lloyd Garrison was another prominent voice. Through the American Anti Slavery Society, founded in 1833, he demanded immediate and uncompensated emancipation. His publication, The Liberator, was instrumental in spreading abolitionist ideas. And let's not forget Sojourner Truth and Frederick Douglass, both former slaves who became powerful advocates for the abolitionist cause. Their personal experiences lent authenticity and urgency to the movement. The Liberty Party, formed in 1840, marked a political approach to ending slavery, emphasizing the growing commitment to change within the American political landscape. These individuals and organizations laid the groundwork for the eventual abolition of slavery, each contributing in their own unique way to a cause that was both necessary and just. Let's delve into the Southern reaction to the growing abolitionist movement. One significant aspect was the gag resolution, which from 1836 to 1844 effectively silenced all anti slavery petitions in Congress. This was repealed by John Quincy Adams in 1844, marking a key moment in the fight against slavery. In response to revolts like Nat Turner's, Southern states intensified their control, adapting strict slave codes and even banning the teaching of reading and writing to enslaved people to curb potential uprising. The South also propagated pro slavery arguments with figures like George Fitzhugh, claiming that slavery was a benevolent institution, arguing that it was better than wage slavery, and asserting a paternalistic view that civilized inferior people. Fitzhugh controversially suggested that some people were naturally destined to be slaves. Note how George Fitzhugh disagreed with the authors of the Declaration of Independence. Pro slavery Southerners' beliefs were counter to foundational American values, and they knew this and proclaimed this. These defenses highlight the deep rooted societal and legislative measures the South adopted to protect and justify the institution of slavery. American values that all men are created equal, that governments derive their powers from the governed are foundational beliefs to this republic. It is these foundational beliefs that helped inspire and grow the abolitionist movement. It is these beliefs that motivated Americans to fight under the American flag to rid the nation of the cancer of slavery.